Then I will talk about an holistic approach. That is basically what we do here on Avenue Code when we are running a discovery into a client. And for last, I will be concluding this lecture. Okay, but let us start for what is a discovery. Well, basically, we have many different frameworks to understand a client scenario. And I have Gabi here with me, not Gabi Naomi, but Gabi Miranda, who asked me this question this week, and it was very insightful for me to build this presentation. And it's very usual that people ask us, what is a discovery? What is the difference between an assessment and an inception or a design thinking? So before we talk about what is a discovery and what a discovery means, I would like to bring those three different approaches of introducing to a client. Let's start for the assessment, which is basically the process of evaluating, analyzing, and judging the effectiveness, quality, or value of something. So we usually do an assessment when we already have some kind of technology in place, or when our client wants a diagnosis about something very specific. For instance, a GCP assessment, when we have a GCP cloud architect working into the client's environment to understand and to evaluate this environment. The same happens to data assessment, when we have a data architect looking to all the technologies that are composing the data environment of the client and getting some feedback from that. So basically, an assessment is something that is directioned to something very specific. Then we have the inception, which is basically the initiation of a project or initiative. This is basically where we get the vision, the goals, and the scope of the endeavor that we are going to start. Okay, so as an example, I brought the MVP inception, which is basically the Avenue Code team trying to understand the whole vision and what is going to be built. So also an inception is something that is specific, but is more focused in the project and the product vision. And then we have the design thinking, which is basically a very usual framework, human-centered. So it's an human-centered approach to problem solving that emphasizes empathy, creativity, interactive prototyping. So this is something that we use when we want to build a product, but we have to understand the people who are going to use this product. For instance, building an app for farm workers, we have to understand this profile of user before we start building this product. So basically, we use design thinking for this kind of situation, to prototype, to build something from the scratch that is human-centered and focused in the user experience. And then there is the discovery. And in short terms, discovery is the process of exploring, investigating, and uncovering new information, ideas, phenomena, and it's often the initial phase of a project or research endeavor, where the focus is on gathering insights, understanding needs, and identifying opportunities. The purpose of a discovery is to gain deeper understanding of a problem, challenge, or domain, as well to generate ideas and possibilities for potential solutions. So when we start talking about discovery, you're going to realize that this is something that is a very generic and more and wide. We are looking for different aspects of our project, and we are looking for ideas, for insights, for opportunities to build a project. And usually we do this kind of initiative, doing research, interviews, talking to our clients, talking to the stakeholders and everybody who is involved in a project. So basically, discovery is something that is more wide, and you can access different aspects of a software project. And well, so who is going to need a discovery? I would like to start this part of the presentation with a sentence. I want a discovery proposal so I can have a good understanding of my current business scenario, considering all the aspects of my operation, and departing from that, thinking a tech solution to help me improve in my delivery capabilities and puts this company as innovative and avant-garde player in the market. Do you know how many times I heard this sentence in my life from a client? Exactly, never. No client comes to us asking for discovery, but they need a discovery. This is something that we're never gonna hear from a client, because usually they come to us asking for a deadline and a cost. And this is the most usual scenario. So how am I supposed to offer something that my client is not requiring? And how do I approach this? So I brought some other sentences. Those ones are more usual and I hear basically every day. For instance, I want to improve my user experience with a website that sells my cars using the same layout as my competitor. This is something that I already heard working here on Avenue Code. And we have to understand that the objective, we have to ask, first of all, the objective that is improve my user experience. This objective. This objective is my client business goal. A second observation about this is this solution is data-based. So how I supposed to sell a different product using the same layout as my competitor? Those are two aspects to consider in this sentence. I have another example here. I want a tool capable of automating my internal processes to set my employees' time free. The first thing to check is that technology is not an objective, but it's a way of achieving a business goal. And here my client is bringing the tool as his objective. The second thing to look at is the documentation. It's important to check if I have enough information to understand my target. In these terms, the target of this technology or of this initiative is the internal process. So I know, and do I understand my internal processes to have a tool to support it? And the third time is about the employee's time. Do I have any evidence that adopting technology is more cost efficient than remodeling my processes? So things to be considered. So when do I offer a discovery to my client? And I listed 4 main symptoms. The first symptom is the goal. If the business objectives are not set or clear to serve as a starting point for a project, this is a symptom that my client needs a discovery. The second one is the solution. If the proposed solution clearly doesn't attend my partner's needs and requirements, my partner needs a discovery. The third one, the documentation. If there is a lack of information about core aspects of the project, like integration points, dependencies, functionalities, epics, everything that is necessary to get a project started, yeah, my client needs a discovery. And cost. If the amount of money available for investment is not compatible with the necessary work to accomplish partner goals, yes, my client also needs to understand his scenario in a better way. So he also needs to discover. Sometimes all those symptoms are together in just one shot, and sometimes we have a lack of goal and cost, for instance, or we have a lack of documentation and a lack of goals. So those are the symptoms. So basically, if our partner shows one of the symptoms of all of them, it's discovery time. And it's important here to highlight that our partner operation is in pain. That's why here they are looking for us. Just like a person, a company will intuitively seek for the solution that seems quickest, often without considering possible side effects of a decision based on the heat of the moment. As trust advisors, we Avenue Code, we are responsible for changing the game and offering the solution that addresses the cause of the pain and at its root, rather than just treating momentary symptoms. So sometimes my client comes like, well, I have a very slow database. I want you to solve this. But we have to understand the scenario, because sometimes only the slow database is not enough. Solving this problem is not enough to solve the whole ecosystem. And that's why we have to have a holistic approach, okay? So before talking about what is a holistic approach, I should make sure that everybody knows what holistic means. It basically, or something holistic is characterized by the belief that the parts of something are interconnected, and can be explained only by reference to the whole. So as when we are talking about a software ecosystem or a software development environment, we are not only looking for the code, but we are also looking for the infrastructure that is involved to deliver this code and so on. Well, and here we have our holistic approach. I brought this example based in a client that we have here also on Avenue Code. And my client was complaining that his time to market was too long, and they have a bad quality software. So to get until this result, we had to go back to the first point of his ecosystem and start looking to different aspects of that. So the first thing is this client doesn't use the right resources to implement his software. So this is an architecture issue. So they were basically using different GCP products that were not very cost effective, and they were not very scalable in horizontal ways. So they couldn't improve their data processing process. The second thing that we look at is the software itself. His software was not prepared to perform as expected. They were not prepared to run threads in parallel. They were not prepared to process more information without getting into loops. And this is something that we were looking also. The third point was about the SRE. This client didn't know the source of his bottlenecks because they were not watching their environment. So I know that the whole process is slow, but I cannot understand where is slow. So if I don't know where, probably I'm not going to know why also. And the fourth point was about quality. This client didn't have any test case mapped, so they didn't know also what kind of input and output were expected. So when the software was breaking in the final client's hands, it was hard to identify how to fix it, because they have to look into the whole process to understand what kind of output was getting wrong. Then there is a DevOps aspect. His deploy process takes too long because it includes data processing. So this is not the kind of step that's supposed to be in a deployment process. So my client would like to have a shorter deployment time, but he was processing data while he was deploying. And by the way, he was testing data while he was deploying. This is something that should be done in a different segment, not when you are deploying a software modification. So all of those aspects together got this bad result, this time to market too long and a bad quality software. And well, when we do this kind of research into our software environment of our client, we have some findings. The first one is knowledge. A well-executed discovery provides insights into important parts of a software ecosystem. Often, companies that carry out a discovery with us start to see more clearly relevant aspects of their ecosystem. The discovery closeout document can serve as a starting point to guide internal teams and to locate components efficiently. This is very usual that we have companies that are not documenting the whole ecosystem, and basically all the aspects of the software development are inside one people's head. So I have that guy from infrastructure that knows how to deal and how to manage the infrastructure, but the rest of the company has no visibility about it. So when we run a discovery, it's easier to get visibility to the client and to the internal teams of how the other teams are working, operating the whole ecosystem. The second thing is recommendations. When we run a discovery, we are able to give a list of specific recommendations. And this time we are going to break down the parts of the software. So we are going to have architecture recommendations. We're going to have DevOps recommendations, and splitting all the different areas involved in this discovery process, and we can generate from this knowledge a bunch of recommendations. And this is a relevant result since from it's possible to add knowledge to the teams responsible for a solution. So I have a DevOps team responsible for deploying this application, but they didn't know that was possible to do the deployment through a different way or using a different tool and so on. So when we bring a recommendations list, we are also bringing knowledge to internal teams. The third thing is when we run a discovery using this holistic approach, we can set a strategy. With this list of recommendations, my client is able to map out which activities will have the most positive impact in the business and in the shortest amount of time. This also allows companies to establish a data-driven strategy that makes sense given all factors of change. So now I know how my environment is working. I know what I'm supposed to do to improve my environment and my whole software ecosystem. And now with those two factors on my hands, I can set a business strategy. So from that, I can start building a product, or I can start remodeling processes or building processes from the scratch, or I can start building an app. With all of this, a company can better guide its suppliers, internal teams, and business areas in building a common objective. Knowing all the relevant variables during a change process, minimize risks and reduce our costs involved. And yes, it's a cost reduction since the client's not calling their legal team, for instance, because someone delivered something that was not required, or because the final result after a software implementation without the proper knowledge about it is not performing as expected. So this is when I offer a discovery to a client, I'm always saying that let's sit down and take a breath and look to the whole picture to understand the whole scenario. Well, and with all of this knowledge, we definitely can start an agile project following the product cycle like we do here on Avenue Code. It's not very usual that our clients comes to us with the whole documentation and with the whole business and mapped and with a very well-structured well-structured solution. It's more usual that they have a lot of lacks in this kind of knowledge, and we have to bring this knowledge to the table before we start a closed scope project. So, well, in the end of the day, Discovery is a research tool that will enable a set of strategic decisions based on knowledge and data. This knowledge is capable of driving business in a more assertive direction, minimizing risks, reducing costs, and bringing clarity to those who run and operate the business. So when a client says, "Oh, you are asking for money to give me a quote," you can answer that. We are not requiring money to give a quote, but we are giving them a tool to get a better strategic decision made. Well, I think that's all. Oh, it's Michael said, in one of our clients, we did something like 100, 150 discoveries 90% of the time. The scope of what they thought they wanted was changed. Yeah, this is absolutely usual and something that happens often. Sometimes the client is kind of lost, and this is our role to help them and to find the right answers. So sometimes we participated of some RFPs or BIDs, and they are like, everybody gave us a scope, time, and the price, and you are offering me a discovery. Yes, we are offering you a discovery because we don't have enough information to give you precisely how much time we're going to take to build your software product and how much it's going to cost. Since we have this information, we can give you a more assertive price and deadline.
Yeah, if I can add 2 cents here, in the worst case scenario, if everything is aligned, I think the benefits of the discovery is not about, it's not just about knowing what the client wants. It's also to align a group of people to achieve the same goal. So that's really useful. It reduce a lot of things during the project as well. Reduce the number of documentation, reduce the number of meetings, alignments, and everything else. That's really good. And discovered from a lot of customers' perspectives, just about a cost, but actually it's an investment, because if you don't do it in the beginning of the project, you do it anyway during the project, but it will cost more for sure. That's really good. Yeah, I really like this contact, Lucas.
Yeah, and you brought something that is really important. Sometimes we have the technical area and the business area completely talking different languages in the same client. They have absolutely different goals, and they are not talking to each other. So it's also our responsibility to bring this together to achieve their goals. Anyone would like to add something?
And the perception of what is important change when we have this discussion together, right? So sometimes a client asks just, "Oh, it's just a button," and the tech team say, "Okay, that's a button that will release the rocket." So, and then they say, "Okay, it's not that important because it's cost too much." So things like that, it's important for those discussions.
Yeah, perfect. Any questions? Anyone would like to add anything else?
Me, I would like to ask you, Lucas, how long do normally these discoveries last? And if there is, for example, a specific information that is already aligned with the client that could help us to reduce the time on it, or it would, if there are any matters that would be considered to kind of map how long it would last and what are the dynamics and the process that we would need to invest on that discovery.
Perfect. Thank you, Camila. Well, it can vary. It depends also mainly how the client came to us and how this client is presenting their goals. For instance, past week, we finished a discovery with a Brazilian client, and we took like 2 weeks and 1 week to understand the whole scenario, doing interviews, researching into their code and their default environment. And we spent the second week working in a closeout document. So usually we do it using interviews and doing research into the instance that my client already has. Sometimes it can take longer. In the past year, I went to a client in Canada, and I spent 1 week in local on their office. And after that, we spent more 3 weeks working in different areas. This discovery generated a document with 54 pages of considering many different aspects of their software ecosystem: DevOps, security, quality assurance, database effectiveness, and so on. So it may vary, but I would say that it takes more around 2 weeks to get a good result from a discovery. It depends on basically of what my client is requiring and what kind of information is necessary to start the project.